Hi there, I'm Jim Zirin. Welcome back for more conversations. Bernie Sanders called economic inequality in the United States the great moral issue of our time, the great economic issue, the great political issue. Revolutionary idea? Or was he onto something? Economic inequality is the wealth gap between the rich and everyone else. The sobering figures have become all too familiar. The richest 1% of our fellow citizens own more wealth than the bottom 90%. And the wealthiest 10% have captured 76% of the private wealth in America. Our guest, who rose to the summit of corporate America, wants to do something about this problem. He's an old friend, Peter Georgescu, former CEO of the international advertising agency of Young and Rubicam, and author of a brilliant new book entitled Capitalists Arise, in which he makes some startling, concrete proposals. Peter Georgescu, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Jim. So nice to be with you this morning.
Yes. Now, you wrote this great book, Capitalists Arise, and very thought-provoking, very interesting. But what you didn't tell me in the book is how you got interested in this subject and why you wrote about it.
Very good question, and there's a simple answer. The motivation was fear. Fear because being in the advertising business and the marketing business most of my life, I began to understand and see concretely the disparity between the two Americas, the haves and the have much to less in America. And I knew very quickly that this situation is becoming the existential challenge for America today. The reality of inequality is simply not sustainable. And I was brought to mind a quote from Will and Ariel Durant, who wrote it in the 1960s, that the problem of inequality has been around for millennia, but it always gets resolved, they say, in one of two ways. You either redistribute wealth or you redistribute poverty. I've seen the redistribution of poverty, having lived my early years in Romania under the communists and having put in a labor camp and having gone to the bank where you took all your life savings, whatever millions they may have been, and you got $200 back, no matter what you put in. So that's the redistribution of poverty. I've seen that. It's not very pretty. And the redistribution of wealth is also not very pretty. And besides that, it doesn't work. So I decided that we better look for a different solution.
Okay, well, the title of your book, the exhortation, Capitalists Arise, it kind of resonates with the Communist Manifesto, Workers of the World Unite.
Yes.
Now, you're not trying to take down the capitalist system, are you?
On the contrary, I'm trying to get my brethren to unite together to help find a solution. We seem to always look to government to solve all of our problems, including the inequality issue. And we give business a pass. And we shouldn't, because business represents something like $18 trillion to our economy every year. In the public sector, the government is about 4.5. So there's clout there. And besides, the only institution in America that can really produce growth and prosperity is business. Government can help, can support, can enhance, can incent. But it is business that has to really deliver prosperity in America. So my plea, my siren song, is to say to us capitalists, we better find a third way to the Durant's kind of definite ways that problems of inequality get solved.
Well, just to push you a little, I mean, the government could weigh in on this. Congress could raise the minimum wage. Wouldn't that do it for you?
Not enough. The issue is far beyond just the minimum wage. We're talking here about somewhere between 65–70% of America that is really in trouble. For example, close to 60% of the American homes have to borrow money to put food on the table. 60% of American homes. Then you look at the upper middle class that's sandwiched between 20% of us, where life is as good as it gets today, the haves, and those who are insolvent, meaning the 60% or so of America, is the upper middle class, arithmetically speaking. And what's left after you take all their incomes and all the expenses was left in the kitty of the house is about $8,500. $8,500. That's what
Doesn't get you very far these days.
Not very far. You have some unusual expense, like Janet Yellen said about a year ago, a $400 unplanned expense, and most Americans can't deal with it. So it's the same kind of figure. So about close to 80% of Americans are in trouble. Joe Stiglitz, Nobel Prize winning economist, said 4 out of 5 Americans will experience some form of poverty in their lifetime. So the data is really there. Now that's a significant issue. It is the issue for America, and nothing seriously good can happen to this country long term if we don't begin to address this problem.
Well, we also see the tremendous disparity because not too long ago, it seems to me, the CEO received perhaps 20 times the income of and compensation of the lowest paid worker in the enterprise. And now it's something like 300 times. It's huge.
It's huge.
So how do you correct that? Do you have the CEOs just pay it back to the workers?
Well, I think, like Willie Sutton said, let's look where the money is. And that's maybe you can call that an immoral issue, but it's not the big problem. The big problem is really that we don't pay people well enough. For 4 decades now, we've seen that people have basically not received a significant increase in their wages. Flattened out for 40 years, close to 40 years. And we know that when America was really cooking, between the period of 1945 to about 1980, the so-called golden era economically, the lines of productivity increases and wage increases was really one line. As productivity went up, so did the wages. But that stopped in about 1980. Productivity went up, innovation went up, profits exploded, and wages were flat. And this is what created not only income inequality per se, but what income inequality produces, which is inequality of opportunity, which really produces a socioeconomic catastrophe, zip code by zip code. This is not America, north, south, east, west. It's the zip code next door. And within half a mile to 3 miles of almost anybody's house in America, there's a zip code that is really, really in terrible shape.
Now, since the early 2000s, we've seen a tremendous increase in technology and innovation. What role does technology play in this picture? Is it a hero or is it a villain?
The answer is yes.
To both?
To both. Because it has really helped increase the quality of our lives as technology is applied to, let's say, healthcare is a good example of that, and made life more interesting and entertainment-wise and so forth. But technology has also produced serious problems, like getting rid of people. But sadly, what we have asked of technology in the business world mostly is to get rid of people. And that has been
increases the disparity.
Increases the disparity, increases productivity. But we've never asked technology to do the opposite. How about asking technology to do one or two things, or both? Either to increase the ability of the same number of people to add more value by enhancing the ability of the individual to produce more goods and value. That's one way to do it. The other one is to produce really new jobs, to really enhance the ability for businesses to grow, use technology in that way. But we seem not to have asked technology to do that. We just asked technology, please make me more productive, cut more people.
Well, in the presidential campaign, we had the sense that many Americans were angry that we were losing jobs to foreign countries where manufacturing could be conducted at lower costs, and so we were no longer competitive because our prices would be too high. But can technology play a role in reducing labor costs and so that our prices of finished goods are competitive with foreign products?
Well, but first of all, globalization is a reality. We live in a global world, whether we choose to or not, it doesn't matter anymore.
We also can't grow by trading with ourselves. We have to trade with somebody.
We have to trade to somebody, and globalization actually has opened up an enormous number of markets for American products and services around the world, and we're benefiting from that, as are many other countries. Now, we also have been, I think, unwise in shipping overseas a lot of jobs that we should have kept. And technology is a good example. We have shipped many of the sort of middle-level creative industries overseas, only to find out that they are an essential ingredient to the ability to create added value, superior creative products. And now China, for example, has been able to implement great advances in technology because they held the whole spectrum. And we had, unfortunately, shipped overseas too much of our knowledge base. So we weren't wise always. Now, if a shirt was produced in China for a couple of dollars and it cost us $50, those jobs are actually gone. And so be it. But we haven't been very selective or very careful about that, not understanding the implications of what we ship overseas. But again, globalization is both a friend and a foe. But one of the reasons for sure that why inequality did come to be.
Like technology now, it's often been said that Donald Trump bought into the anger of the middle class in America because of perceived income inequality and because they felt we were losing out to foreign workers. And that was something Bernie Sanders tapped into as well. So do you see a parallel between at least the diagnosis of Donald Trump and the diagnosis of Bernie Sanders, even though they would have done different things about solving the problem?
Jim, you're 100% right. You see, this vast number of people in America are disappointed. They are frustrated. They're angry because they have really come to give up hope. They have given up hope that over these 40 years, any institution in America who could help were not listening to their plight. Party aside, nobody has really seriously tried to do enough to help the plight. By anybody, I meant either the White House or Congress. And they have complicit either one or the other, or sometimes both, to really do nothing for the plight of these people. So these people looked at themselves and said, the American dream is not a reality anymore. I cannot be the best that I can be, and I can't see my children. Even worse, I can't see my children having that opportunity either. And that's the evil of income inequality, that it helps produce all these other really catastrophic consequences for this country.
Okay, so we have a new tax bill. And the new tax bill is supposed to give tax relief to the middle class. Do you see that as a step toward solving this problem?
Well, as I looked at the data, let's start with a symbol of what is going on with this tax bill. About 10% of America gets about a $50 break in taxes. If you look at the top 1% of America in terms of income, the top 1%, they get a $34,000 break. So that's beginning symbolically to tell you where this bill is going.
So we're building in more inequality.
We're building more inequality. And the truth of the matter is, the bottom, from a percentages point of view, the bottom 80% of America will get much less in terms of percent than the top 20% of America. So if you really are saying this is a bill for the middle class, it's just not true. It's just not true.
But they are reducing the corporate tax rate. Now, isn't that something you favor?
Well, let me go back to the real problem here for the taxes. And you say, how do you go about deciding that cutting corporate tax is the most important thing in America? We talked about inequality as the existential issue. You look around and you say, people need more jobs. You look around and say, hey, we have a crumbling infrastructure. And by the way, if you fix the infrastructure, you also add a lot more jobs. You have a really poor healthcare situation at this point in time that costs money. We have one of the worst educational systems in the developed world, at the bottom quintile of performance for our kids in secondary schools. So education is in trouble in America, as is healthcare. And then we have sustainability also. You see the fires that exist in California and the hurricanes, which were predicted, and they're going to keep coming. And look at the tragedy for the folks in Puerto Rico. That's over 1,000 dead, most of them since, in fact, the storms, because we're not helping those folks. And we know it's coming, so maybe we should invest hugely in FEMA to have them be prepared for more of these tragedies to occur. So where should the tax cut to corporations fit into that? Yes, we tax globally corporations, which no other country does. But at the same time, we hardly collect on these global folks. And also, corporations don't pay the statutory tax rate of 35%. The average for most large corporations, global corporations, it's about high 17%, close to 18%. So
why is that?
Because of the loopholes that exist for corporations not to pay taxes. Large corporations like General Electric pays nothing, zero in taxes. Others pay somewhere in between. So small businesses can use help, for sure, but large corporations really don't. Now, so going to 20% to me is outrageous.
Now, critics of the tax bill say that the corporations are just going to use the tax savings either to pay larger dividends to stockholders or, more likely, to buy in their stock, which means greater compensation packages for the executives, so even more disparity. Do you agree with that? I mean, are you critical of stock buyback plans?
Well, let's connect the tax plan to the issue of inequality, because they have something in common, as you just suggested. The reality is that the business sector has been complicit in helping create inequality by not paying people enough, but not investing their businesses enough. So if you don't invest in the business, you become less competitive. You also don't create as many jobs.
Yeah, that's Joe Stiglitz, whom you mentioned, said he believed that the tax cut should be conditioned on the corporation and increasing its investment and its R&D.
Exactly.
Research and development.
That's what should happen, but it isn't. So therefore, this is more of the same kind of problem. So corporations, what they have done is to really engineer, financial engineering has taken place, because earnings per share, which is the fundamental measure of success.
That's the driver.
That's the driver. So if you can't drive real earnings, organic earnings, what you do is you decrease the number of shares. So the ratio looks terrific. So this game has been being played ad nauseam. And this is the problem with the free market system being hijacked in favor of shareholder primacy. And the way it's executed is to buy back your shares so that the ratio of earnings per share looks terrific, and you keep, let's say, wages flat because people become an expense. People are no longer an investment, they're an expense. So that becomes a serious problem. And on top of that, you have the highest dividend rate since 1933.
And if the stock price rises, the executives and the CEO are the beneficiaries of that, because their pay packages include stock options.
So this factory that exists today of business really produces higher shareholder return, this maximizing short-term shareholder value.
Well, what's wrong with that? Don't shareholders own the corporation?
No, they don't.
Aren't they entitled to better earnings per share? Isn't that what the executives and the board should be working for, to create greater wealth for the shareholders?
You know, one of the great myths of all time is that the shareholder owns the corporation. They do not. The preponderance of legal opinion is very clear. The corporation owns its own assets. The shareholder has rights, but so does the employees and the corporation itself that needs to be fed in order to reinvent itself to stay competitive on a global
So
basis.
if shareholders don't own the corporation, who does?
The corporation itself.
Corporation owns itself.
Exactly. That's what the law says.
Well,
And
that's what Professor Stout, our fellow Princetonian at Cornell Law School, says.
Exactly.
But not all lawyers agree with that because
Well,
the traditional construct has been that the shareholders.
I will challenge any lawyer to point to a law, to one single law that says that the shareholder owns the corporation.
Well, let's take a small corporation, a ma and pa store, where the owners are the ma and pa, and they work in the business, and so they're creating the value, and they're creating it for themselves. I mean, don't they own the corporation?
You see, oh, absolutely they do. But what do? They also own the liabilities of that business, don't they?
Yes.
They can't walk in and out of that company when they will and say somebody else owns it. No. Obviously, we're talking about public ownership here. And there was always a contract between the corporations and the community. And the deal was this: the corporations would get a big tax break, which they always had, and now even more so with this law. And in addition to that, they got limited liability, which is a huge advantage. But in return for that, they were supposed to be good citizens, to help create more jobs, to pay people fairly. All of those good things were part of the deal. And that stopped somewhere in the 1980s.
So do you believe that corporations should exist for the benefit of the public or for the benefit of the shareholders?
It's a shared benefit. It's optimizing multiple stakeholders. The customer is the most important stakeholder for any corporation.
Well, they can't have revenues unless they please the customer.
And you can't have happy customer without employees being happy. And here's an interesting little statistic for you. Gallup research just came up with this data. The level of relationship between employees and the companies. This is a study about all companies in America. And it says that only about 31% of employees are engaged with the corporation. 52% are not engaged. And 17% are seriously not engaged, meaning they're the disruptors to the organization. So basically, this is very serious because who produces innovation and productivity increases? Not the money guys, not the shareholders, not the CEOs or the C-suite. It's the employees who do that. But our relationships from about 1980s between the corporations and the employees has deteriorated. The employees are seen like breathing robots. And that's a real problem in America. So we have to change that. We have to pay people better. We have to respect them. We have to treat them with dignity. Okay. And then things can get better.
Recently, you wrote a fabulous op-ed that appeared in the New York Times, in which you said, among other things, and I quote you, "A fair and responsible free enterprise system is still the best engine ever invented to create opportunity and a higher standard of living." Now, you believe that, don't you?
Completely. Look at the facts.
So are the operative words fair and reasonable?
Yes, absolutely.
You received about 1,000 responses to your article. It was so provocative. What was the weight of what people said about the article?
Well, the weight was obviously one of concern about what's going on today, one of support, go get him guy. And there were some negatives as well, to saying, yeah, my goodness gracious, business is evil. Why are you trying to do this? We should just destroy it. So there's a sense also of anarchism. Out of the desperation that we have helped create comes a sense of saying, you guys are not taking us seriously. You're not paying attention. And I'm saying capitalists arise because we are one of the institutions that can do something about it. The paralysis in Washington today that exists today between the parties make it very difficult to come up with constructive solutions. And ideology trumps most of the good things in politics. Goodwill and a sense of the common good in America, unfortunately, has left town. And so we're left with this paralysis of governments And I'm saying it's now time for business to step forward and say, there's a lot that we can do. So we have to reform ourselves in business.
Paralysis in government. Unfortunately, we run out of time, but I have a question for you, Peter Georgescu. Are we moving any closer to solving the problem of economic inequality in America?
I will say that if we business act with urgency, if we in business can partner with government to improve education, to improve the way we invest in businesses that create more jobs, we will do a great deal for democracy. We'll do a great deal for bringing, let's say, morality, fairness, and ethics in business. And then the best days will be ahead for us in America.
The best of times are to come.
They can be.
Peter Georgescu, thank you so much for coming by.
A pleasure, Jim.
And thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more conversations. I'm Jim Zirin. Take care and all the best.